Good morning and welcome. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington. I'm Christine Hauser, new member of the Board of Trustees. Whoever you are, whatever your background, we extend a warm welcome. And if you are new to UUCA, we look forward to getting to know you. I signed the membership book in March 2010. So I have witnessed many changes in UUCA, but at the end of each year, in the days between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I am reminded of how I value this congregation, how it has helped me evolve as a person and connect to others who have enriched my life. I think of the days between Thanksgiving and Christmas as a season of gratitude, a chance to give thanks for my blessings, and the opportunity to give back to the wider community and the UUCA community. In the spirit of Christmas, a reminder about two upcoming events. We have Secret Santa and the Holiday Craft Fair. Today, we invite you to join us in the Fellowship Hall to see the Christmas tree that supports our Secret Santa efforts. There's more details about that in Connections newsletter and in today's order of service. About the craft fair, that's next weekend, and if you want to support individual craftspeople or need inspiration for your giving, we invite you to join us there. It's on Saturday and Sunday. Hours are in the order of service and also in the Connections newsletter. In the pulpit today is our intern minister, Greg Bonin. Greg is currently enrolled in the Master of Divinity program at Meadville Lombard Theological School, one of two Unitarian Universalist seminaries, and is pursuing vocational affiliation with the Unitarian Universalist Association and the American Ethical Union. He was inspired to serve at UUCA because of Reverend Amanda and UUC's reputation as a teaching organization and legacy of advocating for social justice. If you are here in the sanctuary, please join us outside after the service for a chat. And if you are with us online, please join us for the virtual coffee hour. The Zoom link is in the Connections newsletter. Let us worship together.
Hi folks, good morning. Today's call to worship is written by Reverend Elizabeth Mount. And before being settled in Pennsylvania, Elizabeth worked with communities in Western North Carolina and Appalachia, or Appalachia, depending on where you are. So I'm glad to call in some words from the mountains. From our very first breath, we reach out. Co-regulation, not self-regulation, is in our nature. We find our cues from the sun and the moon, from each parent and caregiver. We find our place in this great turning planet by turning to one another, generation to generation. We awaken to the dawn and fall asleep at the evening's end. Our life's journey is part of something greater, something simple, something divine. A flame cannot be lit without a spark. A life cannot begin without the air. And we cannot begin to find ourselves without love. May we reach out to one another. May we offer love and nurturing care. May we join together in celebration of the interdependence of our lives. And in this spirit, let us worship together. So you might know that this is Native American Heritage Month. As we turn to our chalice, I want to acknowledge that this particular chalice was created by Indigenous Hopi artist Dee Satala. And in honoring Dee's artistry and intention, I want to describe some of the symbolism that Dee's chalice brings into our space. The chalice base symbolizes Mother Earth. The checkerboard design represents corn, which symbolizes nourishment, and the waves signify the ocean. The design around the outside symbolizes the four elements: earth, fire, wind, and water. You can see more corn on the outside of the bowl, and the black corn represents the spirit world, while the red corn signifies human life and all living beings. The sunburst around the corn represents the sun, which is the source of energy for all life. And the lines at the tip of each sunburst signify migration or journey. These also represent our intentions and hopes going out into the world. Finally, the center of the bowl that holds our chalice flame symbolizes a prayer for unity, peace, and harmony for UUCA. So sharing in these elements, we gather together as a community of memory and hope to celebrate life and its infinite possibilities for love. And in one voice, we light this chalice as a symbol of the light within every human heart. May our individual sparks meet and merge, bringing both light and warmth to the world.
We also begin this week the lighting of our Advent wreath. We will light a candle each Sunday from now up until Christmas. This week, we light the Advent candle for love. May you find love and may you spread love everywhere you are this week.
People look east, the time is near of the crowning of the year. Make your hearts fair as you are able. Trim the hearth and set the table. People look east and sing today. Love the guest is on the way.
Wendy, thank you so much, and Barbara for that music. Through the month, as we light our Advent candle, we will hear a sung response from the Advent hymn, People Look East. This is the time in our service for a message for all ages, a wisdom lesson. And I think I may have some help with the wisdom lesson today. Come on up. There's my helper, conscripted at home this morning. I have some other helpers as well. This story comes to us from Sherry Philobaum. There once was a child who got lost in the woods. As night began to descend, the child became more and more frightened. I'm sure any of us would be frightened too in that situation, but what made this child even more frightened was that she had always been afraid of the dark. She was more afraid of the dark than any of her friends or her siblings. She didn't know why she was more afraid than her friends or her siblings. She only knew that when the sun went down, she was always very glad to be inside her brightly lit house. When the sun was all the way down this night, and the only light was just a tiny bit of light from the moon and the stars, the child got so frightened all she could do was sit down and cry, which she did. Soon she heard a voice say, "What's all that racket?" She looked down. Actually, she stood up so that everyone could see her. She stood up and then looked over and saw a mole squinting up at her. "I'm lost in the woods," the child said. "It's dark and I'm afraid." "Well," said the mole, "perhaps you could take your noisy crying farther down the path. I hate having to come out of my warm, comfortable, dark hole to tell people to be quiet." Then the child heard another voice. "Go back into your hole, Mr. Mole. I'll take care of this." The child looked up in the direction that this newer voice seemed to be coming from, and in the darkness, she could see two glowing eyes looking down at her. Before she could scream, which was her first impulse, there was a flutter of wings, and the creature flew down near her, and she could see that it was an owl, who said, "Please excuse Mr. Mole. He hates to come out of his nice dark hole for anything, to be honest." At this, the child burst out crying even harder than before, because as frightened as she was of the dark, having non-human animals speak to her was beyond her experience and a little frightening in itself. I can understand that. "No need for crying," said the owl. "If you just give me your address, I can guide you home." With that, the child did indeed stop crying, partly out of relief that someone might be able to lead her home, and partly out of curiosity as to how an owl could locate her home with or without an address. But deciding she had very little to lose, the child choked back her tears and replied that she would be very grateful to be guided home and gave the owl her address. And I hope everyone here has your address memorized in case an owl ever has to guide you home. That's a good tip. So this strange pair headed off through the dark forest in what the child hoped was truly the direction of her home. When her fear left her just a little bit, the child looked around, and though the moonlight was dim, she began to notice her surroundings a bit. At one point, she noticed a kind of flower that she'd never seen before, and slowed her pace just a little so she could gaze at it. "That," said the owl as they continued walking, "was an evening primrose. Did you know that there are some flowers that bloom only at night? There are moonflowers and night gladiolas, too, flowers you would never see if you never went out at night." After a while, the owl said, as if musing aloud to themselves, "And of course there are animals too who love night and the darkness. Me, for example, I love the dark. In the daytime the light hurts my eyes, so that's when I like to go into my tree and sleep." To this the child replied, "Well, I like the daytime. I can see to kick a ball. I like the hot sun at the beach. When the dark isn't scary, it's just boring." "Boring, you say," replied the owl, and they clearly had some opinions to express on this point. But just then, there was a fluttering and a squeaking around their heads. It took the child just a few seconds to figure out what it was, and she shrieked, "A bat!" and started flailing her arms to knock the creature away, shrieking the whole time. The shape backed away and, hovering just out of reach, said, "Excuse me, that's just my way of saying hello." "Well, hello to you, Mr. Bat," said the owl. "This child was out here lost in the forest, and I'm helping her find her way home. You're not hurt, are you?" "Well," said the bat, "I'll probably have a bruise on my backside, but I think I'll live." "But you're a bat," said the child, "a creature of darkness. Weren't you trying to drink our blood?" "No," said the bat, "but I've been eating lots of yummy insects who would have been biting you if I hadn't been around. Anyway, I couldn't help overhearing what you said about darkness being boring. If you really want to come just a little bit out of your way, I can show you something really exciting." "My parents always told me never to go any place with strangers," said the child. "Owl will vouch for me, said the Bat. We've known each other for years and years. Owl agreed that Mr. Bat was indeed an upstanding citizen, so the group went off the path and traveled through the deepest forest for what seemed like just a few minutes, and they came out onto a dark beach. Here we are, said the Bat. The child gazed out at the beach, lit very gently by moonlight, and thought, this is certainly beautiful, even in the dark, but I wouldn't call it exciting. Just then, there was a movement in the sand, like a little bubble of sand rising up. There was another little bubble, and then another. It looked almost as if the beach in the area they were looking at was boiling. Then out of those little bubbles of sand popped a rounded shape. Looks like we got here just at the right time, said the Bat. As they watched, more and more shadowy shapes came out of the sand, and soon the child realized what she was seeing. Lots of baby turtles, hundreds climbing out of the sand. This was truly exciting. Once each turtle shape pulled itself up out of the sand, it started crawling as fast as its legs could carry it toward the water. When baby sea turtles hatch, said Owl in a sort of teacherly voice, they need to find their way to the water because they almost always do this at nighttime. Because to find the water, they need darkness everywhere else to follow the moon and starlight reflecting off the water. Daytime sunlight is too bright and scattered everywhere. Oh, said the child. As they turned to leave and head back towards the child's home, Owl spoke again, as if thinking aloud to themselves. You know who else loves the darkness beside all the nighttime plants and animals? The moon and stars love the darkness. That's when they can really shine. Oh, they're there in the daytime as well, hidden behind a wall of light. But when that wall goes down with the sun, the stars and the moon reveal their beauty. After what seemed like a very short time, the child and Owl left the forest and walked down the street that the child recognized as her own. She was very happy and relieved, but also a little sad to say goodbye to Owl, to whom she gave a very gentle hug and a thank you. She went into her home and, being extremely tired, got ready for bed right away. Before she went to bed, as a matter of habit, she bent down to turn on the nightlight she always kept glowing through the night to keep the dark at bay. But before her fingers touched the switch of the nightlight, she smiled and pulled her hand away. She got into her bed, pulled up the covers, and let the comforting arms of darkness soothe her to sleep. Thank you very much, Joanna. And thank you to Owl, Bat, and really no thanks to Mr. Mole. We are in a time of longer nights and shorter days, of the darkness coming around us and holding us tightly and closely in its embrace. I want to invite you into a spirit of prayer and meditation. And as we do that, I want to invite you to bring into your own heart and mind anyone you are holding particularly close. We hold the O'Neill family close today. We hold all who suffer or worry today. In the silence for just a moment, I invite you, if you are moved, to say aloud the name of someone you hold close in this moment. Spirit of life and love, God of many names and beyond our naming. We whisper aloud the names of those we love. We name them in our heart, surrounding them with our love. May all who suffer, who worry, who grieve, know they are held in our love and in the love that courses through life between each one of us and beyond our embrace. May we create that love wherever we go. May we ourselves be wrapped up in it. May it be so. Amen.
Fuente d'amor, ven hacia mí y al corazón, cántale de compasión, sopla la mar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arráigame, libérame, fuente d'amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Thank you, Wendy. So I begin today with an invitation. You are invited into this place, this sanctuary, your home, or from any place where you might be connecting with us. You are invited into shared presence, just as you are. In a moment, I'll invite you to participate in some meditations by Reverend Kimberly Ann Tomczyk Carlson and Gwen Matthews, which have been adapted for us this morning. Reverend Carlson has roots in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and so we hold space for her and her communities in our worship today. You are invited into a moment of embodied imagination. As part of that imagination, you are invited to move your body or participate in a way that's comfortable for your own body. Close your eyes if that's helpful for giving yourself permission to move in your seat. Take a few deep breaths. Draw it down into your belly. As your chest and belly fill, notice if there's any resistance to your inhalation. And as you exhale, notice the sensations in your body. Each sensation in your body has a story. Feel the gravity of the earth holding you in place. Wiggle your toes as if they were roots. And if it makes sense for you to wiggle something else for roots, you're invited to do that. Roots connect you to the earth, lending you strength. Gently sway in the wind, turning your body like a trunk of a tree, leaning this way and that, bending as the air pushes and pulls. What surrounds you may sway you, make you bend and feel unbalanced. Wiggle your toes. Know that your roots can hold you as you grow and learn. A tree is nourished by the soil and water. You are nourished by the food the earth grows and the water it provides. You are cared for and loved by many people. Breathe deeply. Breathe deeply. And still yourself. Know that your roots are strong. Wiggle your toes. Feel that? Each breath, every inhale, exhale, we are living, breathing, connected. We are the whole, complete, beautiful selves that we were born to be. Wiggle your roots. Feel that? In your bones, in your muscles, in your heart and your blood. That is the extraordinary you. The you who was born for this time, this place, this moment. Wiggle your roots. Feel that? The struggle, the worry, the pain, the loss, and the grief. It is still you. You are still whole, complete, beautiful, and extraordinary. Wiggle your roots. Feel that. As we move into some music, I invite you to stay with your body and breath with the root or roots that you've created for yourself in this shared place. Staying rooted and continuing to breathe deeply, you are again invited into a place of listening. I want to read some excerpts from Letters to a Young Poet, which is a set of 10 letters written by German poet Rainer Maria Rilke. They're addressed to a younger person who was training in a profession that was contrary to how he'd imagined himself working in the world. And as you're listening, notice if there's some space that opens up in you. From letter 1. Things aren't all so tangible and sayable as people would usually have us believe. Most experiences are unsayable. They happen in a space that no word has ever entered, and more unsayable than all other things are works of art. Those mysterious existences whose life endures beside our own small, transitory life. My dear Mr. Kappas, I have left a letter from you unanswered for a long time, not because I have forgotten it. On the contrary, it is the kind that one reads again when one finds it among other letters, and I recognize you in it as if you were very near. It is your letter of May 2nd, and I am sure you remember it. As I read it now in the great silence of these distances, I am touched by your beautiful anxiety about life, even more than when I was in Paris, where everything echoes and fades away differently because of the excessive noise that makes things tremble. Here, where I am surrounded by an enormous landscape which the winds move across as they come from the seas, here I feel that there is no one anywhere who can answer for you those questions and feelings which, in their depths, have a life of their own. For even the most articulate people are unable to help, since what words point to is so very delicate, is almost unsayable. If you trust in nature, in what is simple in nature, in the small things that hardly anyone sees and that can so suddenly become huge, immeasurable, if you have this love for what is humble and try very simply, as someone who serves, to win the confidence of what seems poor, then everything will become easier for you, more coherent and somehow more reconciling. Not in your conscious mind, perhaps, which stays behind, astonished, but in your innermost awareness, awakeness, and knowledge. I would like to beg you, dear one, as well as I can, to have patience with everything unresolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers, which could not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps someday far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. Perhaps you do carry within you the possibility of creating and forming as an especially happy and pure way of living. Train yourself for that, but take whatever comes with great trust, and as long as it comes out of your will, out of some need of your innermost self, then take it upon yourself and don't despise it. From letter 9. And your doubt can become a good quality if you train it. Ask it whenever it wants to spoil something for you, why something is ugly. Demand proofs from it. Test it, and you will find it perhaps bewildered and embarrassed, perhaps also protesting. But don't give in. Insist on arguments and act in this way, attentive and persistent every single time. And the day will come when, instead of being a destroyer, it will become one of your best workers, perhaps the most intelligent of all the ones that are building your life. And finally, from letter 8. So you mustn't be frightened, dear Mr. Kappas, if a sadness rises in front of you, larger than any you have ever seen. If an anxiety like light and cloud shadows moves over your hands and over everything you do, you must realize that something is happening to you, that life has not forgotten you, that it holds you in its hand and will not let you fall. Friends, you're again invited to reflect with music for a moment, letting Rilke's words settle around you and inside you if there is a place for them. Thank you, Barbara. So I want to express my gratitude for your accompaniment on our journey together this morning. Thank you. I think it's important for us to be here together, even if here for you isn't actually in the sanctuary at the corner of Arlington Boulevard and George Mason Drive in Arlington, Virginia. I spell this out because I believe it's important for us to orient ourselves in relation to space, a consideration for spatiality. Our bodies inhabit places. Our bodies take up space. And our bodies carry our stories with us into those spaces. I admit I don't know how you arrived here today. I don't know whether you've come from a place of joy, a place of sorrow, a place of tension, or a place of calm. So what's your story this morning? Do you find yourself still warm from the Thanksgiving holiday? Perhaps instead, you observed a day of mourning to honor Native resilience and protest against the racism and oppression that Indigenous people continue to experience worldwide. Maybe you're reveling in the holiday music, and maybe January can't come soon enough. And maybe it's all of that. Because we are not monolithic, individually or collectively. Our histories don't hold only one story about any one experience. As we learn and grow, as our stories emerge and evolve out of our lives, we sometimes discover that they can be surprisingly complex. We discover that our stories, and therefore our bodies, can hold gratitude and sorrow, celebration and solemn remembrance, anger and peace. Our bodies can hold what Rilke names as a beautiful anxiety about life. And raise your hand if you've ever thought about anxiety as beautiful. Oh, one taker, excellent. I hold such mixed feelings about this time of year. I love the darkness. I love the extra space for companionship with the moon and the stars. And having less daylight is really challenging. Each year, as the sun moves closer to the earth and the days become shorter, I reflect that I unwittingly took some of these long days for granted. And I hold both of these storied experiences in my body, my appreciation for daylight and my love for the nighttime. Neither experience is reduced to a single story. Finding or making space to hold all of the experiences I bring with me, that we bring with us, might cause some discomfort. It might bring some beautiful anxiety about life. And that's okay. As we learned from Rev Amanda in our wisdom lesson today, the discomfort of a different experience, like being lost in some dark woods, might contain the beauty of a blossoming evening primrose. Exploring that darkness might mean that we speak with some non-human animals, like moles or owls or bats. Maybe, like Rilke suggests, we might pause to notice something seemingly simple in nature that quickly becomes awe-inspiring and immeasurable. This happens to me when I see the moon. I'm suddenly reminded of a story that's both larger than and also part of my body's stories. It causes the place I'm in to gain a different orientation and scale. The moon reels around us rooted in the earth, as we crawl together in orbit around the sun. It's a reminder that we are part of a complex and interdependent web of existence. And remembering this makes my stories more coherent and somehow more reconciling. And yes, it sometimes offers me a beautiful anxiety about life. I've learned that this beautiful anxiety is an invitation to have patience with everything unresolved in my heart, and to love the stories my body holds about the night and the daytime as locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. So this is my invitation to you: to create space for the history that has brought you and us to this moment. To have patience with what is unresolved in your heart. To love your body's stories. And to remember that we are here together in covenant, learning each other's stories. And that might be enough for this moment. American poet and pacifist William Stafford closes our invitation with his poem, Remembering. When there was air, when you could breathe any day if you liked, and if you wanted to, you could run. I used to climb those hills back of town and follow a gully so my eyes were at ground level and could look out through grass as the stems bent in their tensile way, and see snow mountains follow along the way distance goes. Now I carry those days in a tiny box wherever I go. I open the lid like this and let the light glimpse and then glance away. There is a sigh like my breath when I do this. Some days I do this again and again.
This month, our offering is shared through Equality UUCA. And I have some words. I want to just thank Bruce Ryder, who gave us the words for our offering collection so that we might not only be giving in resources, but also to be growing in learning and understanding. In 1992, UUCA became one of the very first Unitarian Universalist welcoming congregations in the country, a congregation that chooses and votes to love and support lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and other gender, non-binary, and asexual people. It's important for our congregation to affirm and to see the inherent worth and dignity of everyone represented in that LGBTQ+ acronym we've become accustomed to hearing. None of these people are abbreviations, each one a whole person. Equality UUCA is the group within the UUCA congregation that works to organize our congregational advocacy, education, and support for LGBTQ+ people. Among the commitments we make as a Unitarian Universalist welcoming congregation is to support this work outside of our walls with our time, our talent, and our treasure. During the month of November, 70% of your offering from the collection plate will be designated through Equality UUCA to support the work of Equality Virginia and of the Washington area chapter of Parents and Friends of Lesbian and Gay People, PFLAG, DC. 30% of your gifts will be used to support the life and work of the UUCA community. Equality Virginia is the statewide nonpartisan advocacy organization that educates and lobbies in the state legislature on behalf of LGBTQ+ citizens of Virginia. PFLAG DC supports families navigating a way through what remains for some an unfamiliar and unexpected landscape. I invite you to give generously today, our last Sunday of November, as together we support our congregation's commitment to this work. The offering will be received. The ushers bring the offering forward. Barbara, I'm just so enjoying the music today and letting it really settle in. Thank you so much. As we shared last Sunday, we have some new words of offering blessing. I'm going to ask you to just stand right there. You're perfect, and you even match. We're going to send gratitude for our extremely well-coordinated ushers today. Actually, turn around because look at this. Just look at the stripes, folks. My goodness. We are grateful for our ushers as much as we are for our gifts that they hold in their hands. So I invite you to turn to your order of service. I'll start. We bless and receive these gifts, opening our hearts to true generosity. Let us be grateful when we give, be it time, talent, or treasure, for giving brings us joy. Let us be grateful for our needs and the experience of vulnerability, for they teach us how to receive in community and love. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts to nurture this congregation, for it is a blessing to make a difference together. Thank you. As our ushers move toward the back with the collection, I'd like to invite up Sonia and Scott, there you are, Urbam, who are going to share with us just some words of testimonial and gratitude through our month, which is indeed a month of gratitude. Thank you, Christine. Come right on up.
All right, well, those new words of the blessing are perfect for what we wanted to share with you this morning. Hi, I'm Sonia Urbam. I'll let my husband Scott introduce himself. We're a foreign service family. We have 2 girls, a freshman in college and a junior in high school. And they were mostly raised overseas, but we were here in the area for 2 years when they were in elementary school. And we decided that we really needed and wanted to connect with some people who share similar values to us, because we wanted our kids to be part of a community where they could see that there are people working to bend the arc of the moral universe towards justice. And we wanted them to know that you can do that through both individual action and collective action. And that led us to UUCA, and it's been a great opportunity for us to be involved with that and for them to see the work and the difference that people here are making through things like Voice Actions or the Climate Crisis Action Coalition that we've been involved in. But what I wasn't expecting was going to be so important to me especially has been the multi-generational relationships that we have built at UUCA. We're very far away here from family, but through UUCA, we have had a chance to meet people of all generations. I've been teaching RE since we came back 4 years ago, and I have loved getting to know so many kids in the congregation and having young kids in my life again. And I've also loved getting to know the generation of UUCAers that came before us, especially the stewards of DIG, the Do It Green group, who are here every month. We join them taking care of the native plants and trees on this campus, including the beautiful trees that we all get to enjoy during service every Sunday, and also the native plants in the parking lot at the back, where I have been fortunate to teach some of the children of the congregation this semester. So with that, I will turn it to Scott.
Thanks, Sonia. I'm Scott Urbam, and as Sonia said, one reason we love UUCA is that this community is really committed to social justice and is full of great people who are doing work every day to make the world a better place. No matter what social issue you're concerned about, you can probably find a group here at UUCA that's working to make a difference. A few months ago, I volunteered at the State Department on the Afghanistan Task Force. I saw firsthand how evacuating tens of thousands of at-risk Afghans was an incredibly challenging and sometimes frustrating operation. That experience got me interested in doing something to help Afghan refugees, many of whom are being resettled here in Northern Virginia. Well, sure enough, there's a group here at UUCA that has recently formed with the help of Rev CTC called UUCA Afghan Refugee Team. We're still in the early stages, but please keep an eye out for an announcement later this week in Connections about how you can help by donating household goods. We'll be partnering with 3 organizations, Global Shout, Lutheran Social Services, and Resettling Afghan Families Together, or RAFT, to deliver those donations to Afghan families in need. Thank you.
Thank you. So we close today with an aspirational invitation from Reverend Scott Taylor. May we remember that we never walk out into the world alone. We stand on the shoulders of brave and generous ones who have gone before. We walk beside companions ready to catch us when we fall. We hold memories of dear ones in our hearts who keep us connected to our center. May we make this our most important work, to remember that who we are does not end at the edges of our own skin.